ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. So today, Swami Vireshanandaji, who is the editor of Prabuddha Bharata, the famous journal which Swami Vivekananda started in the lap of Himalayas Mayavati, incidentally, it is celebrating its 125th anniversary. So he is a great scholar in Sanskrit and English. He will be talking on a very interesting topic, which is why is it that each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a yoga? All of you know the colophon at the end of each chapter says Bhagavad Gita is Brahma Vidya, the science of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra, the technology of yoga. And Krishna-Arjuna Samvada, the dialogue between God and man, Nara Narayana Samvada. So he will take chapter after chapter and discuss this, at the end of which there will be a small question answer session, and we will try to answer questions as much as possible. Now Swami Vireshanandaji, editor, Prabuddha Bharata, from Himalayas.
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Dear friends, I am very happy to be a part of this webinar series on meeting the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic the yogic way, organized by Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational and Research Institute, Belur Math, Kolkata, with the help of other institutions. The topic of the day is why each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a yoga. Bhagavad Gita, as we all know, is Brahma Vidya as well as Yoga Shastra. Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre. These are all these famous phrases we utter at the end of each chapter. What is meant by Brahma Vidya? Brahma Vidya means science of Brahman or Atman, the knowledge of which will take us to liberty or the freedom called moksha in Indian tradition. Yoga Shastra means the technology of realizing it, the sadhana. So Brahma Vidya is sadhya, the goal, and the Yoga Shastra is sadhana, or the means. And yoga involves both the ideas. The yoga indicates Brahma Vidya as well as the Yoga Shastra, and Bhagavad Gita as yoga teaches both the goal, the spiritual goal, ultimate goal of human life, as well as the means to attain it. And there is another idea put forward by Shankaracharya. He says Gita teaches two dharmas. Then is pravritti dharma, the path of engagement with the world or the path of action, and the another path is the path of renunciation or the nivritti dharma. The pravritti lakshanam dharma, nivritti lakshanam dharma. This is what the Shankaracharya says in his commentary. Pravritti lakshana dharma will take us to material prosperity called abhyudaya, and nivritti dharma will take us to ultimate spiritual beatitude called nishreyasa. So this is what is called Vaidika dharma dvaya. The two kinds of dharma which belongs to Veda itself, which has come down from the Vedic tradition. This is what has been taught to Arjuna by Krishna according to Sri Shankaracharya. The greatness of Gita lies in being the essence of the entire theme of the Upanishad. In the words of Shankara, Samasta Vedartha Sara Sangraha Bhutam. And what is the main purpose of the Gita? The ultimate spiritual beatitude, Nishreyasa, can only be the ultimate goal of the study of the Gita. And this is what is the Yoga Asti Sadhya, the goal. I have already presented you two ideas of yoga. One is the yoga as a goal, that is Brahma Vidya, and ultimate realization being the moksha, that is yoga. Yoga means the union with God. The goal is also called yoga. The means of attaining also is called yoga. The Bhagavad Gita presents before us the goal as the means, yoga as sadhya, the goal, and also the yoga as the means. So according to Shankaracharya, the ultimate spiritual beatitude called Nishreyasa can be achieved only by the knowledge of Atman or Brahman through complete detachment or renunciation called by the name sannyasa. So in order to achieve the complete detachment, one has to undergo the rigorous training of karma yoga and also dhyana yoga, the yoga of action and the yoga of meditation. In sum and substance, what Shankara says is, there are two kinds of dharma, pravritti and nivritti dharma, and ultimate spiritual fulfillment, nishreyasa, is the goal taught by Bhagavad Gita. And the ultimate principle, Bhagavan, is taught in the name of Vasudeva. So the Gita says, Vasudeva, the ultimate principle, the great Lord, the Supreme Lord, has become everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Now the question before us is, why each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a yoga? As I have already told you, the yoga as either as means, sadhana, or the end, or sadhya, is reflected in each and every chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So each chapter is a yoga. Each chapter has got a name ended with yoga. So before we take on the task of analyzing the content of each and every yoga, let us dwell upon the three basic definitions of yoga given in the Bhagavad Gita. The two definitions come in the second chapter of the yoga, and the third definitions we have in the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The first definition is Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. The Samatva is what is the goal of life, goal of the yoga, tranquility, the tranquility of mind. an balance of the mind in what is to be achieved through yoga. And the real samatva, real equanimity, the real concentration of the mind can be achieved only in the state of Atman or the Brahman. And that is the ultimate goal of the yoga taught in the Bhagavad Gita. So samatvam yoga uchyate. This is one of the definition of the yoga. The next definition is yoga karmasu kaushalam. This is the definition of yoga as a means or the sadhana. So in each and every chapter, either the goal is depicted or the means is enumerated. That is why each chapter is a yoga. Each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a yoga. And the last definition is somewhat different from the earlier definition. It says tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samnitam. Yoga has to be understood as separation from the experience of sorrow. And this is also a sadhya, the goal. The ultimate purpose of the yoga is to get rid of all kinds of suffering we are having in this life. So we have in general understood the concept of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. So another idea I would like to present before you. In Bhagavad Gita, yoga is presented as knowledge and the thing to be known, or the object of the knowledge. The knowledge is called jnana, and the object of knowledge is called the jnana. Jnana and the jnana. So let us try to understand how the idea of jnana here, the ultimate principle, the God, Atman, Brahman or Ishvara, the ruler of this world, is what is to be known. That is which is to be known. So what is the jnana? What is the to be known? To be known is the goal also. Jnana is not different from the goal. We want to know the characteristics or the greatness of principle called Atman or Brahman or Ishvara, and in the same time we would like to be one with that principle. We want to discover the inner potential, inner divine potential, which is none other than the Atman or the Brahman. So we have to understand what is jnana, what is to be known, is also sadhya, what is to be attained. So yoga is union with God, is tantamount to the great principle to be united with. So union is not different from the principle itself. Here there is no such thing as union between two different entities. I am just discovering my own inner divine potential, divine nature as Atman or the Brahman. As I have already told you, the sadhya is the means, jnana. Sadhya is the jnana. Jnana means knowledge. Through that knowledge, I will try to understand and I will try to unite with the jnana. In the second chapter, Atman or the Pratyagatman, the indwelling spirit, is described in detail, and that is what is jnana, one has to understand. In the same time, the seventh chapter, Jnana Vijnana Yoga, the object of upasana or the object of dhyana is described in detail. The Vasudeva, the great principle, the Supreme Lord, is depicted here as the dheya, the object of meditation. And also the immanent aspect of Bhagavan Vasudeva and the cosmic power, his Aishwarya Shakti and his immanence are all described in Vibhuti Yoga, the 10th chapter, and also in the 11th chapter, which is called Vishwarupa Yoga. And also in the 9th chapter, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya Yoga. So the 9th chapter, 10th chapter, and 11th chapter describe us the glory of the Brahman or the glory of Ishvara, his immanent aspect. His immanence is clearly indicated there. And his cosmic power, the Prakriti, and it is also called Maya, which is nothing but the manifested world. It has got two elements or the two dimensions. One is apara, another is para. Apara is the inert nature and para is the sentient beings. And all these ideas are described in 7th chapter, that is Jnana Vijnana Yoga, and it is further elucidated in the 13th chapter as the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna Yoga. Kshetrajna is the sentient being and the Kshetra is the inert nature, the combination of which has formed into this universe. Now this is what is Jnana, depicted or the enumerated in the Bhagavad Gita. Coming to Jnana, as I have already told you, it is the sadhana. We have to undergo a rigorous training of understanding or action. Here understanding is Jnana Yoga and action is Karma Yoga. In the 2nd chapter, though it is named as Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya Buddhi and Yoga Buddhi both are dealt with. Sankhya Buddhi means Jnana Yoga and the Yoga Buddhi means Karma Yoga. Both are dealt with here in the 2nd chapter. What has been taught in general way in the second chapter has been given an exclusive treatment in the 3rd chapter as Karma Yoga. The main ingredient of Karma Yoga is Nirasakti and Yajna, the spirit of sacrifice and also complete detachment. And this Karma Yoga is the means to attain the knowledge. And the 4th chapter deals with Jnana exclusively. The idea of Brahma Karma is depicted here. A Jnana Yogi has to do what is called Brahma Karma. He has to do work, but he should be able to see the Brahman, the Atman, the divinity in every action and also every paraphernalia involving the action. And this is the crux of the Jnana Yoga. Next becomes another dimension of Jnana, that is renunciation. According to the traditional schools, Jnana and Sannyasas are complementary to each other. One cannot have Jnana, one cannot be established in knowledge unless one dwells on Sannyasa also. And it is the yoga of detachment and tranquility that is termed as Sannyasa. It is one of the primary requisite of a Jnani or the man of knowledge. Next we have the Dhyana Yoga, the 6th chapter, which is termed as Antaranga Yoga by Shankaracharya himself. The Bahiranga Yoga, the external form of yoga, is Karma Yoga. The internal form of yoga is what is called Dhyana Yoga, internal aspect of spiritual practice. So next, in order to be proficient in Dhyana Yoga as well as in Karma Yoga, we have to practice it. The importance of practice is laid out in Abhyasa Yoga, which is the 7th chapter of the Gita. Next we have the Bhakti Yoga. We should remember Bhakti is one of the great teachings of the Gita, The teaching of bhakti starts from the 7th chapter itself, from the Abhyasa Yoga, but it culminates, it has given very great importance in the 12th chapter, that is Bhakti Yoga. And for the sake of meditation, one has to develop the love for God, and it is also called Saguna Brahman, the Brahman with the auspicious characteristics. One has to develop special love for him, unselfish love, and that is what is called bhakti. And also, one should transcend the limitations of prakriti, or the nature involving three gunas, the sattva, rajas, and the tamas. That is the subject of Trigunatita Yoga, the 14th chapter. How to transcend the limitations of inert nature. And in the 15th chapter, and there is a graphic description of samsara, the transmigratory existence, in order to instigate us a kind of dispassion, a disgustness towards that. And that is the purpose of Purushottama Yoga. And in the end of his teachings, Krishna devotes 2 chapters to teach the ethical aspect of yoga. Though it is not directly connected with the yoga proper, but they are the sahakari sadhanas. They are the accessory ethical disciplines for the one's conviction in understanding of God or the great principle. There are 2 chapters devoted to them. One is the Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Daiva and Asura. There are 2 kinds of qualities. One is the divine qualities, another is Asura, the demonic qualities. So if we develop the divine qualities, one will be eligible to understand the divine nature of God, and also one will be able to practice concentration of God. This is the idea. And in the 17th chapter we have Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. It is not only Shraddha, the faith is classified into 3 types according to one's own characteristics. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and Dana, Yajna are all depicted as being classified into 3 types. One is encouraged to hold on to Sattva aspect of Shraddha, the faith, the Dana, the charity, and also Yajna, the sacrifice, and Tapas, the austerity. In conclusion, the concluding part of the Bhagavad Gita, that is 18th chapter, is called Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. All important matters, all important teaching so far taught in the Bhagavad Gita is condensed here as a conclusion. The central message of Gita is taught here as liberation through renunciation. True renunciation is taught here as giving up of all kinds of desired acts. So the desire involving action is the impediment to spiritual progress. One has to give it up. That one has to develop complete detachment, and this is termed to be the final teaching or the ultimate teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. And also, the ultimate detachment involves surrendering one's own ego and all actions to Supreme Lord. So, one has to depend upon the divine. The combination of divine and the human, and that will lead one's life to success. This is the ultimate teaching of the Bhagavad Gita as enumerated in the 18th chapter, that is the Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. We have so far, in a very brief manner, tried to understand how each chapter of the Gita is yoga itself. Let us dwell on it in little more detail. And in fact, we are trying to understand the integral structure of the Gita. Gita is a one unit. It has got its own integrity in its structure and the teaching pattern that we are trying to understand. Let us go to the first chapter, Arjuna Vishadha Yoga. Why the sorrow of Arjuna is termed as yoga here? So, if we want to have a panacea, a remedy, we have to understand the cause of it. Our problem is dukkha, the sorrow. What is the causes of dukkha? How dukkha is expressed or manifested in human life? How that evils, avidya, is manifested. According to Indian tradition, the dukkha is the manifestation of ignorance in us. Ignorance is the primary evil. The ignorance is manifested in the form of grief and delusion. So, in order to remove the grief and delusion of human being, called here as Shoka and Moha by Shankaracharya, he correctly points out these are the two important and basic evils of human life. One is grief, another is delusion, Shoka and Moha. So, according to Shankaracharya, this whole chapter is devoted to show that all evil is rooted in the Shoka and Moha. Shoka and Moha, these are all the doshas or the evils. They form the roots of samsara, the transmigratory existence, and the Shoka and Mohas are the two evils one suffers from. The root of these two evils is the ignorance. And this is the very purpose of Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Unless we analyze the evil aspect of our lives, unless we analyze what is lacking, the lacuna in our life, we will not venture into spiritual endeavor. So, in order to show how evil the human suffering is, how evil the human delusion is, this chapter goes on to depict in detail, illustrate in detail the predicament of Arjuna. Arjuna's predicament is in the form of Shoka and the Moha, grief and delusion. Next leads to the question, what is the panacea, what is the remedy for this Shoka and Moha, grief and delusion? In Sankhya Yoga, the second chapter, the answer is given. One should develop Sankhya Buddhi as well as Yoga Buddhi. What is Sankhya Buddhi? The Sankhya Buddhi, as I have already told you, it is the knowledge of the true nature of reality. What has it to do with our grief and delusion we suffer in our life? The true nature of absolute reality is meant to annihilate the cause of griefs. As I have already told you, the cause of grief is avidya, the ignorance, the delusion, the transmigratory existence, samsara. And Shankara's words, it is Shoka, Moha and Samsara. The cause of grief and delusion, transmigratory existence lies in avidya. the true nature of our own existence, our own human personality, will remove that. And this is the utility of Sankhya Yoga or the Jnana Yoga. Next, Yoga Buddhi is taught in the second chapter. Here, yoga means karma yoga. And karma yoga is in the form of worship of God. Shankara clearly says, Ishvara Aradhanartham, he says. Ishvara Aradhanartham. That Ishvara Aradhana Purvaka Karma, that worshipping Lord in the form of our everyday action. And this is what is called the Karma Yoga. So accompaniment of Karma Yoga is what is called the Dhyana Yoga or the Yoga of meditation, which will be taught later. So these two buddhis, the awareness, understanding with respect to Jnana, the ultimate principle of Atman, and understanding with respect to means of attaining that knowledge, that is Karma Yoga in the form of worship of Lord, Ishwar Aradhana, through our everyday action, forms the subject of Sankhya Yoga, the second chapter. So we can easily understand how each and every chapter of Bhagavad Gita has one objective, that is yoga, either the means of attaining the God, means of attaining the ultimate principle, or the very goal itself. As I have repeatedly emphasized in the beginning, the goal also is yoga, as well as the means also is yoga. Yoga as union with God is the goal, the ultimate spiritual fulfillment, and it is called as Nishreyasa, and also the union and the means of union, the sadhana, is also called yoga here. Now we have 4 chapters: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. Respectively, they form 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th chapters of yoga, which teaches the means of attaining the ultimate principle, how to have union with the great principle called God, Brahman, or Ishvara. Now, in the karma, we have already come across the idea of yoga in the 2nd chapter. The same has been emphasized in the Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga, the Krishna says, Na karmanam anarambhat naishkarmyam purushosnute. Unless we start the action, we cannot reach to the state of inaction. Inaction here means the state of renunciation, complete detachment, establishing oneself in knowledge. One cannot achieve that unless we undergo the training in action, how to do action in a dispassionate way. And what is the way Krishna is teaching us in order to achieve that Naishkarmya Sthiti, the state of complete detachment and renunciation? He says, Karmendriyani Sayyamya. One should try to restrain the sense organs. One should try to practice Karma Yoga through the Indriya, the sense, restrained senses. The first aspect is we have to restrain or control the senses, and by the control senses, we have to practice Karma Yoga. And in the mind, we should develop the detachment. Karmendriyaihi karmendriyani sayyamya. Karmendriyaihi karmayogam we have to do. And asaptaha, detachment. One should do work with a detached state of mind. Another great idea enumerated in Karma Yoga is yajna, this idea of sacrifice, giving up our own self-interest for the sake of collective good, collective welfare. This great idea, the yajna idea, is the social dimension of the Karma Yoga. Next we have Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, as I have already told you, is the means of liberation. Karma Yoga is said to be indirect path to liberation. Jnana Yoga is the direct path to liberation. Karma Yoga leads us to Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga in turn will lead us to liberation. And this is the scheme of Bhagavad Gita as propounded by Shankaracharya. In Jnana Yoga, we established in Jnana of Atman, knowledge of Atman. I am not body, I am not mind, I am the pure Atman. This is the state of complete detachment and renunciation. And here the Jnani sees action in inaction and inaction in action. Karmani akarmayah pashyet, akarmani cha karmayah. This is one of the most difficult concepts to understand. The idea is, though we are active, the mind is active. We may pretend to be inactive externally, but our mind is very much restless, active. And also, even when we are engaged in action, we can keep our mind in pure balanced state, that is equanimity, samatva. This is the secret of seeing action in inaction and inaction in the action. And as I have told you, the crux of Jnana Yoga is Brahma Karma. A famous shloka enumerates this concept. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. If we do any action, we should be able to see every part of that action, every paraphernalia of that action as something similar to sacrifice, yajna. So every action should be yajna, and every part and every paraphernalia, including ourselves, should be termed as the part of that yajna. This is the first step. The second step would be to visualize or realize every aspect of karma or every aspect of this karma or sacrifice called that action. And as I have already told you, the action itself will become this sacrifice, and there will be no difference between yajna and the sacrifice. That yajna should become Brahma yajna or Brahma karma. Every aspect of karma should be realized as Brahman itself, the ultimate reality. So an illustration of yajna is given here. One who is giving the oblation is Brahman, the oblation itself is Brahman, the pranalyas are the Brahman, the fire is Brahman. Ultimately the whole karma, whole action will become Brahman. And tasmin samadhihi. So one should merge into that idea to attain the great principle called Brahman. And this is the greatest idea, one of the greatest idea we get in the Bhagavad Gita. To see God in every aspect of our life. Whether we suffer from a disease called coronavirus or COVID, or we may have to undergo innumerable difficulties in our life, still we should be able to see everything as an aspect or the part of divine Leela, divine play, and everything we undergo, every experience we undergo is Brahman itself, the ultimate reality itself. And this is the greatest teaching of the Gita. This is the knowledge Gita is teaching to us. And this knowledge will burn up, Gita says, all our past impressions. These past impressions are the impediments to our spiritual progress. All these past impressions that will give rise to grief and delusion, shoka and moha, will burn up due to this jnana. And this is the greatest teaching of Gita. And this jnana is the purest of all. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate. Now in the next chapter, we are given to idea that jnana nishtha, establishing in jnana, is tantamount to having renunciation and detachment. One need not worry about the term sannyasa. And sannyasa is a state of complete detachment. That's all. Without yoga, without karma yoga, without undergoing training of mind and cleansing of mind in karma yoga, one cannot dream of sannyasa or the renunciation or the detachment. And in the real sannyasa, every action is dedicated to Brahman or the God. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangham tyaktva dhananjaya. And who is the real sannyasi? The real sannyasi, according to Gita, jneyasya nitya sannyasi yona dveshti na kankshati, who develops no longing or extreme attachment or extreme aversion to anything or anyone in this life. He is the real sannyasi. He doesn't want anything. And he doesn't develop any hatred towards anyone. And he doesn't develop extreme love for anyone. There is no attachment at all. Nirdvandvaha, he has transcended the dualities of life, like cold or hot, or the sukha or dukkha, the happiness and the misery. And such a person will release from the bondage in a very, very easy manner. He can easily release himself from the bondage. That is what Gita says, Sukham bandhat pramuchyate. What Gita emphasizes is not the external sannyasa, it always emphasizes on the internal. And sannyasa, renunciation or detachment is mainly a mental makeup. Manasa, sarva karmani, manasa sannyasta. So one should renounce the actions in mind. Then only one can be truly happy. And he will be samadarshi. He will see same thing. He has got same sightedness, such as sannyasi, panditaha, samadarshinaha. Next, in the 6th chapter, we have the internal sadhana, that is called dhyana yoga. Dhyana yoga is the internal sadhana of the samyak darshana. That is, samyak darshana means realization of God. The external form of sadhana is karma yoga. The internal sadhana is the dhyana yoga, or the yoga of meditation. The crux of meditation is equanimity, samabuddhihi, according to Bhagavad Gita. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitaha ekaki yachatittatma nirashihi aparigraha. One should strive to restrain the mind in a secluded place, being alone, always trying to control the mind. You should not have any kind of desire, He should control his desire, and he should not have many possessions. And such a yogi will get the eternal peace, the ultimate peace, Shantim Nirvana Paramam. And in this chapter, it is told if you practice this meditation, you will be free from the dukkha, and freeing oneself from the dukkha is what is called yoga. The severance with the pain, as I have already told you in the definitions of yoga. Now, what is the object of meditation on which we have to meditate? This has been enumerated in the 7th chapter called Jnana Vijnana Yoga. The primary purpose of the Jnana Vijnana Yoga is to enumerate the great principle, God, Vasudeva, who should be the object of meditation. Madgatena Antaratmana. He resides as an inner self of all, and one should meditate on him. Mai Vasudeve Samahitena. I am the Vasudeva. A yogi should concentrate his mind on me, and he should understand the myself to be a great principle who has in all, who is in each and every object of this universe, who has become everything. One should strive to commune with me through the antakarana, that is the mind. This is the essence of Dhyana Yoga. And this chapter is called Vijnana, Jnana and Vijnana. Here Jnana means the knowledge of God, and Vijnana means Anubhava, the experience. It is not just academic knowledge we are trying to get from Bhagavad Gita. That knowledge has to be transformed or to be transcended into a spiritual experience. And the 7th chapter also tells us about the two aspects of the Prakriti, the divine power of God. One is the Para Prakriti, that is Jiva Bhutam Param Prakriti, all the sentient beings we see around us, including us, and also Apara Prakriti, all the inert nature, whether it is earth, water, fire, or air, or Akasha, the sky, or the mind, buddhi, the intellect, and ahankara, the ego, the 8 aspects of inert nature that form the Apara Prakriti has been enumerated in the 7th chapter of the Gita. The great Lord has become the whole universe. Aham Krishnasya Jagataha. I am the originator, and I merge everything in this world into me. Pralayaha. I am the essence of everything. My divine power is called Maya, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi, constituting of 3 gunas, the three primeval characteristics, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And 8th yoga is the practice, involves practice. It emphasizes on the practice, Abhyasa yoga. And Krishna says here, if you can remember me before death, at the instant of your death, you will be filled with my thoughts and you can attain me. In order to do that, Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara Yudhyacha. You had to remember me always. You had to contemplate on me always. Mayarpita Mano Buddhihi. You should surrender, you should dedicate your mind, your intellect, your body, and everything belongs to you, to me. And then there will be no doubt that you will definitely attain me. You will definitely get union with me. Therefore, And in order to achieve that status of remembering God always, one should practice abhyasa yoga yuktena. One should constantly strive to remember the great principle Vasudeva, the great God who has become whole, everything in this universe. So the final teaching of the 8th chapter is Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yuktaha Bhava. In all the times, always remember and hold on to the yoga. And 9th chapter, it's called the Raja Vidya and Raja Gushya. The divine power of the Lord, Aishwari Shakti, is described. The immanent aspect of the Lord. It is Lord who has become everything. Maya tatamidam sarvam, the Lord says. It is something to be contemplated upon. We have to contemplate on the divine majesty of the Lord. What is the divine majesty? His divine power of which he has become everything. He is everything. He resides in everything. Maya tatamidam sarvam. I have simply in everything. Tahtani sarva bhutani. All the living beings are in me. And this is the Aishwari Shakti of the Lord. But the ignorant people do not know about me. That is why they are in grief. So, what you have to do is to develop bhakti. Yat karoshi, whatever you do. Yat karoshi, yadashnasi, whatever you eat. In essence, every part of your life should be dedicated to me. Tat kurushva madarpanam. This is the teaching of the 9th chapter, Raja Vidya, Raja Gushya. Why it is called Raja Vidya, Raja Gushya? This is the king of knowledge and it is most secretive of the knowledge. That is why this chapter is called the Raja Vidya and Raja Gushya Yoga. Next we have another aspect of divine majesty, that vibhutis, divine manifestations we find throughout the world. The everything in this world which has got excellent qualities is but the divine manifestation of Lord. So that has to be contemplated upon. Both 9th chapter and 10th chapter will give material, content for contemplation of God. Not only we have to contemplate on God to make us contemplate on Him, the contemplate on divine majesty, His divine manifestations are also equally important. That is why in the 9th chapter, His Maya, Aishwari, Shakti is depicted as the object of contemplation, and in the 10th chapter, His divine manifestation, the whole universe itself is the divine manifestation. Nantosti mama divyanam vibhutinam parantapa. There is no end to my divine projections. Vibhuti means divine projected. The divine majesty of the Lord manifested in the world is called the divine projection. That is what is called Vibhuti. So Lord says, it is I who has become the whole world. Athava bahune tena kimna tena tavarjuna vishtabhyaham idam krusnam. I have become the whole world. The whole universe is but a fraction of my divine glory. The whole universe is but the projection of my divine immanence, and that has to be meditated upon. And Krishna reveals the divine majesty, the universal form of Lord in the 11th chapter. Jagadatma Darshanam, Shankaraj says, this is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. What has been enumerated in the 10th chapter has been revealed in the concrete form in the 11th chapter as the Vishwarupa Darshana. And in this chapter, the Lord shows His universal form, and I have become everything. I am the hands of everyone, I am the mouth of everyone, and it is I who has become the whole universe. And everything, good and evil, are all part and parcel of me. And this Krishna shows to Arjuna. And in 12th chapter, it is shown in order to see or realize the glory of Lord, the divine majesty of Lord in the form of Vishwarupa, one has to develop intense love for God. Mayeva mana adastva. Always fix your mind in me. Your mind, intellect, Mayi buddhim neveshaya. Make your intellect enter in me, and then forever you will reside in me alone. Mayeva mana adhastva, Mayi buddhim neveshaya, nivasishyati mayeva. There is no doubt about it. The intense love with the knowledge of divine majesty of the Lord will lead us to the union with the Lord. And this is what we find in the 9th, 10th and 11th chapters of the Gita. And the 13th chapter of the Gita, the Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga, is more philosophical. It has got correction with the 7th chapter. In 7th chapter we have learnt, and there are two kinds of Prakriti. One is Kshetrajna, another is Kshetra. Kshetrajna is sentient. He is the ruler, and Kshetra is the Sharira, this body. The body belongs to the ruler of the body, the Kshetrajna. And who is Kshetrajna? An individual entity is not Kshetrajna. And Lord clearly says the real nature of Kshetrajna is divine itself. Kshetra Kshetrajnayo Kshetrajnam chapimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. In every body, the sentient aspect of the human personality is nothing but divine, and this is the teaching. The whole creation is but the combination of sentient and non-sentient parts. Kshetra Kshetrajna Samyogat. So this Ishvara is the ruler of the both sentient and the non-sentient parts of this universe. And he resides in every part of the universe, whether it is sentient or the insentient or non-sentient. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Just like the sun illumines everything on this universe, the Lord is illumining everything residing in it, in its spiritual brilliance, the consciousness. But the consciousness itself is God. As I have already told you earlier, the 14th and 15th chapters, we have the idea of transcending the Prakriti. We have to transcend the Prakriti. Prakriti is made of three gunas: Sattva, Rajas and the Tamas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are Prakriti Sambhava. One has to transcend it. The clinging to Prakriti or identification with the Prakriti, or in general identification with the body, which is nothing but the product of Prakriti, is the cause of Janma and Mrityu, the transmigratory existence. Through devotion, one can transcend it and become immortal. Vimuktaha amrutamushyate. So this is the teaching of the Trigunatita Adhyaya, Trigunatita Yoga, the 14th chapter. And Purushottama Yoga is meant to describe the samsara or transmigratory existence with the illustration of a tree. Vruksha Rupa Kalpana. It is meant to generate vairagya in us. So we have to develop dispassion towards the earthly existence, the worldly existence, and the existence which involves evils like grief and delusion and the transmigratory nature. So when we develop this passion viraktasya hi samsarat. This is Shankara's teaching. Viraktasya hi samsarat. Only when we develop dispassion towards the samsara, then only we will be eligible for the knowledge of God. Bhagavat Tattva Jnane Adhikaraha. And this is the essence of Purushottama Yoga. Now, last two chapters, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga and Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga, as I have already told you, they teach accessory ethical disciplines that will be very conducive to develop the state of yoga in our mind. In order to practice karma yoga, we have to develop all these qualities. The real practice of karma yoga and accompanied by dhyana yoga, the yoga of meditation alone can lead us to the knowledge. That is the scheme of Bhagavad Gita. So Daivasura, Daivi Sampat, Asuri Pantat, the divine qualities and the demonic qualities. We have to, once again, the Trigunatita ideas has been repeated here. One has to transcend the instinct, animal instinct in us. We have to give up that. And samsara mokshaya daivi prakritihi, Shankara says. If we want to liberate from the transmigratory existence, samsara, we have to develop the daivi nature, the divine nature involving divine qualities. And the asuri rakshasi, the asuri demonic qualities, animal instincts, will bind us further into transmigratory existence. But in essence, we can take up one shloka here, wherein Krishna says, Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nashanamatmanaha kamakrodas tatha lobaha tasmat etatrayam tyajet. There are three gateways for naraka, the hell. What are they? Kama, krodha and lobha. The desire, anger and the greediness. Therefore, one should give up that. Give up them. One should strive to give up them. One should stay away from them. And this is the essence of the 16th chapter, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. And the penultimate chapter, we have classification of Shraddha, faith, tapas, austerity, and dana, the charity, and yajna, the sacrifice, into sattva, rajas, and tamas. One is encouraged to develop sattvic attitude. One should develop the sattvic attitude and perform and faith, austerity, charity and sacrifice in the level of sattvic. We have to rise ourselves from tamasic to rajasic state and we should become an illumined beings. That is the essence of this teaching. As I have already told you, the 18 chapters is the concluding chapter. The entire teachings of Bhagavad Gita has been concluded, have been enumerated here in brief, and the conclusion is made out of them. The essence of this chapter is Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasaha Sannyasam Kavayo Viduhu. The real sannyasa, the real detachment involving not giving up the works as such, giving up desires towards the phala or the results of which. We have to give up all kinds of action that involves desires. The desires are the main enemies, the kama. The work is tangled with the desire that will become the cause of the bondage, the transmigration. As Krishna repeatedly told, and Shankaracharya also stressed, we should do all works as the Ishvara Aradhana. So, One should try to understand Lord through intense love or devotion. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. What is the purpose of bhakti yoga? Yoga of devotion. What is the purpose of yoga of meditation, the dhyana yoga? And what is the purpose of the yoga of karma? Karma yoga. They are all meant to know God, knowledge of God, our own divine potential, our own divine nature as Atman or Brahman, and all the three yogas, even Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is a practice. If you take it as a practice, all the four yogas are meant for Chitta Shuddhi and understanding the divine glory of the Lord and also the real essence of human being, that is Atman or the Brahman, that is indicated in the shloka Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hruddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. Ishvara resides in every being, in the hearts of every being. And lastly, Bhagavad Gita says one should give up one's own ego and surrender oneself to the great Lord in order to get the spiritual benefit. So, if we want the spiritual illumination, if we want the spiritual development in our life, we should hold on to God and God alone. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata. So, in order surrendering involves fixing the mind on God and becoming His devotee. Manmana bhava madbhakta. For all the actions, all our desires, all our intention, the whole of our being should be surrendered to God. Saruva dharman tervityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. We should make the Lord as the sole shelter of our life. And that is the ultimate teaching Bhagavad Gita gives us. And in the last shloka, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Tatra Partho Janurdharaha. We need divine help in our life. We should allow the God to enter into our life. Without God, the human life will be meaningless. Where there is divine component and also the human component, the combination of divine and the human component in our life will make our life really successful, really illuminating, really blissful. Otherwise, the life will become meaningless. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Tatra Partho Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Shri Vijayor Bhutihi Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. This is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. I have tried my best to condense the ideas of Gita and try to show you how each chapter of Bhagavad Gita is a yoga. And it is like a beautiful bouquet where each flower thread will contribute to the overall beauty or the overall attractiveness of the bouquet. In the same way, each chapter is like a flower in the great garland called the Bhagavad Gita that contribute to the glory, the beauty, the greatness of the teaching of Bhagavad Gita by the greatest teacher, the Jagat Guru, Krishna, and it has been taught to one of the greatest human beings on earth, Arjuna. Thank you very much. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.